Okay, so we are setting up for a panel discussion, as you can see. It's called Agents Unleashed. Can we control what we have created? So it's no secret that agents move fast. Risk moves faster. So as autonomous and AI-driven agents take on more tasks across the enterprise, the challenge isn't just making them useful, it's making them safe. So this discussion dives into how organizations can unlock real value from agents without ceding control, and exploring the safeguards that keep autonomy aligned with security. So it's a look at how to balance innovation and oversight in a world where intelligent agents are becoming part of a critical path. So on that note, it gives me pleasure to welcome our moderator onto the stage, Priya Mouli, Chief Information Security Officer for Sheridan College.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I'd like to join our amazing lineup of panelists, starting with Trina Ford, Chief Information Security Officer of iHeartMedia. Followed by Niel Harper, Chief Trust Officer of Hugo. Okay, so thank you all for joining us for the session today. So this session is around AI agents unleashed. Can we control what we've created? Before we jump in, I'm going to ask Niel and Trina to share a few very interesting fun facts about themselves so you have more to remember about them. Niel, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So this fun fact was not a fun fact back on then, but it's more of a fun fact now in retrospective. So my first CISO job, on my first day, as soon as I walked in the door, we were hit with a massive ransomware attack. And we were down for 3 weeks. So that it's a fun fact I can now look back on and I smile.
Oh, wow. Okay, so thrown to the wolves day one. That's Niel for us. How about you, Trina?
Mine is a little different. The fun fact is I swore up and down I would never, ever, ever be a CISO.
Yet here we are.
I wanted to be a CIO, yet here I am. So.
Okay, excellent. All right, so with that said, we'll jump into the questions, but let me open with a quick scenario. You get a call from your CEO, and the CEO says that our AI agent just responded to a customer escalations chain and escalated the wrong issue to the board. This is no breach, no malicious activity, no data loss, but just an overly helpful AI doing exactly what it thought was right and was helpful. This session is exactly about that challenge. So in this session, we're going to deep dive into how to make agents useful without ceding control. And we're going to talk about some of the controls, such as enabling least privilege by default, observability, reversible changes, and governance that survives protection. So with that said, Niel, I'm going to put you on the hot seat for the first question.
No problem.
So agents can act autonomously at high speed. What's the first control you believe every organization, regardless of industry, must have in place before deploying them?
Yeah, I'll provide two controls. I think the first one would be output gates. And output gates from the perspective of every action, every final action of an autonomous agent should be mediated by a security-controlled type of service layer where it's compared to an enterprise policy that restricts its final actions. And from that perspective, I mean, like, for example, if it can start financial transactions, it would say restrict the financial transaction to less than $500. If it can modify production systems, it will be prevented from deleting or restricting a production system which is tagged as critical. I think the second control would be rate limitations, and that's from the perspective to prevent hallucination,
Yep.
escalation, or denial of service. And that's from the perspective of if you see any type of unauthorized actions, then the rate limiter will throttle or stop the actual uh, agent itself. Then it prevents it from starting high volume harm that can then affect the organization.
Got it. All right, thank you, Neil. So I think you touched on the administrative control, which is on the policy side, and then a technical control. So that's a great start. So I guess with that said, Trina, let me pass it on to you. Where do you draw the line between useful autonomy, again, reflecting on the scenario that I just spoke about, and unacceptable risk when designing or approving what good agent behavior is?
Given that I'm not designing and I'm approving, it's always about cost effectiveness. So in other words, cost savings, it's about efficiency, streamlining, it's about the value that it's going to add. So from my perspective and what I'm looking, the lens that I'm looking through, also impact. So when I'm looking through those lenses and I'm thinking about the approvals, I'm coming back to the point of how do we ensure that this agent is going to provide the value, it's going to allow the efficiencies, the streamlining, and the cost savings that we're looking for. So we look at those types of tasks. So what's useful is when we can see the agent is allowing us or permitting us to focus and leverage our resources elsewhere because the agent is actually performing those hands-on keyboard tasks for us.
Right.
That's where the cost savings comes in, and that's what the business is looking for, because now you are actually positioning yourself to do more with less because you're utilizing the agents. So if it's creating tickets, if it's determining what types of alerts should be given to which team, if it's about trying to determine which service account password hasn't been changed, doing some analysis for us, that's useful. When it becomes impactful to the business or when there's an opportunity for business disruption, that's not going to be useful. That's more of a risk acceptance opportunity. So at that point, again, it's about value add, right? Contributing to the business mission. So now it's going to be about making sure that from a risk perspective, we actually have the right controls in place. Administrative is going to be most important. Policies, standards, guidelines, understanding that it's not just about the actions that the agent can take, but it's also about the risk that it can impose and making sure that there's awareness and that we all understand that from a risk acceptance perspective. So what's more risk than not? And I think from there, we can close it by saying, if the agent, look, it's all about what the agent can do for us. And if the agent is going to bring that value add, that's fine, but have the proper controls in place, workflows, approvals, what have you, make sure there's awareness, and then allow it to do what it needs to do.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Trina. So I think you touched on risk versus reward, right? And really relating it back to the organization's appetite.
It all comes back to value creation versus value protection every time, whether it's an agent or a human.
Right. Okay, well said. Thanks, Trina. Okay, so now, since we touched on policy and governance, let's double click into that. And Neil, I'll pass this to you. Many organizations are deploying agents faster than they are updating their governance models. What governance changes do you see as non-negotiable in the next year? And before I allow you to answer this question, I'm also going to weave in another aspect and allow you to cover that as well. I think everyone in the room is familiar with the the recent Anthropic attack, right? The cyber espionage campaign, using its own Claude AI model to be able to execute 80 to 90% of the attack autonomously. So reflecting on that, are you able to provide some governance best practices?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I would start with every time there's an agent that's proposed, it should be registered with a function, a governance function. Could be IT steering committee, the artificial intelligence board, and it should be risk rated from the perspective of understanding if it's a low priority risk, then it's probably just a basic back-end query presentation of information. If it's a high risk rated, it means it can modify production systems. It means it can initiate financial transactions. And based on the risk rating, then you look at what's next. You do a architecture review. You do a penetration test. You make sure that based on the risk rating, you understand the impact to your business, and then you put the appropriate controls in place. I would say, secondly, as well, I would say you take a look at your existing incident response framework, and you integrate it with responding to incident pertaining to an artificial intelligence agent. So you look at playbooks, you update your incident response plan, you look at forensic analysis of the logs and the behavior of the actual agent itself. Then you look at what are your thresholds for regulator reporting if there's a breach of personal information related to an agent. So, you make sure then that you also feed in other type of mechanisms like your threat modeling, and you look at what are the variety of risks that your agents are exposed to, and you make sure that you're risk rating them and making sure you're putting those controls in place before they're actually put into production.
Got it.
I'm going to chime in on that really quick.
Please.
Everything that Niel said leads back to the fact that AI is really no different. It's new for us.
Yeah.
But we should still approach it the way that we've approached protecting our data, utilizing technology, making sure that we've got the right processes, the right standards, the right risk reviews, because that's not changing.
Right.
It's very similar to right now today, if you were to hire an intern or someone fresh out of college, what are you going to do? You're going to make sure that there's strict controls. You're going to understand the tasks that you've put in front of them, what access they have. You're going to make sure that they understand, and we have a plan, that there's some preparedness going on. So I like what Niel just said. It really is about recognizing that this is something new, but it's just like when cloud came out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, I shouldn't say just, it is another new technology. It's the shiniest new toy out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we treat it the same way, looking at the risk.
And I just want to touch base on that as well. I mean, even though it's artificial intelligence, it still has to have an identity.
Yeah,
You still have to look at least privilege. You'll have to look at authentication, authorization, look at your logging and your monitoring. You treat it, even though it's non-human, you still treat it like a human identity because it can do autonomous tasks and it can think, well, not think, but it can reason and adapt. So you still have to manage those risks.
And it's even more dangerous than a human, because at the end of the day, the humans, we are the ones who are designing, programming, and coding. So there could be that point of garbage in, garbage out. There could be the misinterpretations that are coded in.
Right. Right.
And again,
Yeah.
AI doesn't rationalize, and it's not. We can't expect it to use judgment. So we have to make sure that we take the opportunity that we wish we could have with humans, and make sure that we're putting it in place as we utilize agents, AI, however you want to look at it.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah, human in the loop. I love it. In fact, our responsible use of AI guidelines that we released, it screams human in the loop and human discretion all over. And I think we all agree with that. So now, since we touched on the identity part of it, see, look at my panelists doing my job for me, right? They're reading my mind. So my next question is actually to you, Trina. So least privilege for humans is hard enough, and now we're talking about AI agents. So what does least privilege look like for agents at the ground level?
Scary,
Sure enough.
scary. It's hard enough to control humans, but at least at the end of the day, humans, practitioners, however you want to look at them, can use good judgment. They can also look at kind of the intent. They can read into it, and they know truthfully right from wrong. Whereas with least privilege, it's about the access. They get the access. They can pretty much go do what they want to do. When it comes to the agents, again, I look at it like when I was creating a shoring team. You have to understand, you have to trust, you have to build that trust. And it starts with kind of confinement, understanding what that agent can do, give it the access, but make sure that every action that it's taken is very clear in the coding or what have you. And transparently, when we go back to code reviews, when it comes to least privilege, it's really going back old school and making sure that the access that they get is specific for the task that they need it and only for the time that they need it.
Right.
And it, one other thing, and it definitely comes down to monitoring. Unlike humans, you can give them the access, and look, most of us are lazy, you use it and you go home. Whereas the agents are learning. So you want to make sure that they're limited to not just that system, but the actions that it can take, because it will learn, and it's learning from the humans. So,
Got it. Okay, so at the system level, actions and time limited.
yes, exactly.
Neil, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I want to talk about, in terms of identity, also, you want to look at the principle of reversing actions of an agent as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it goes down to the same thing with a human identity. You monitor those actions so you can intervene, and it's the same thing with an agent, that you have the right logging and monitoring. So, and restriction of access, so that any action that is actually taken by the agent, a human being can reverse it to make sure that the damage is then reversed, if the damage can be reversed. But at least don't give an agent the permissions that they can start an action that you cannot reverse.
Agreed. And that it's limited in the impact. To start, again, the goal of the agents is to bring some efficiencies and cost savings. Look, CEOs, they're looking at ways to save, and they're talking to each other about how the agents can perform tasks of humans. So the goal is make sure that whatever actions they take, I agree with Neil, that they can be reversed, or that the impact is small enough.
Exactly. So you're kind of containing it and limiting the blast radius.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Excellent. Love it. Okay, so we'll move on to our final question, and then we'll end with a rapid fire. So shadow AI wasn't expected, but it's widespread and pervasive across all our industries. Shadow agents may come next. How do you prepare for unauthorized or unmanaged agents appearing inside the enterprise? Trina, we'll start with you, and Neil, you can add on.
I'll be quick so that you have your opportunity. Again, I look at the approaching agents as we have everything else. So if you think about third party with vendors, very similar to shadow IT, shadow AI, shadow business. At the end of the day, the way that you get control over AI is the same as we did with our vendors. You have to start with understanding your inventory of agents. Because if you don't understand your inventory of agents or where they live, then it's going to be very hard to protect and understand what you need to do. So one of the ways is first to make sure that you have inventory. The other part of that is also to make sure that you have a steering committee, some sort of steering committee that's going to be a part of the approval of it.
Exactly.
And then again, like third party, you want to make sure that you've got your security reviews, make sure you understand the compliance, the whole 9 yards of it. And transparently, my team just did this, you scan to see what's rogue out there. I don't want to, I want to give you an
wanna
opportunity
add?
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I think it's really about to how you apportion the risk. Each aspect of the agent needs to have risk ownership. So the risk ownership, the primary risk ownership is the business person or the business leader who requested that agent, and it enables their business process. The secondary risk owner would be IT or security, who control and secure the identities, the infrastructure, and other aspects of the agent. And as Trina mentioned, the third risk owner would be vendor, the management, third-party risk management, understanding those risks that the vendor of the agent expose your business to.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Niel. So I think we're down to the
we're
wire
done.
now. Okay, so let's give a huge round of applause to our panelists, Niel and Trina.
Thank you.
To our amazing audience,
Yay.
thank you for your attention. And to Black Hat for having us. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.